Many years ago, complained and described the rest of America as clinging to our guns and religion. I'm proud to say we've got plenty of both down here. I think he intended that to be an insult. I'm not sure, but we took it as a compliment. Now, I know I'm the last speaker that stands between you and a reception. I know many of you came to New Orleans not only to hear these great conservative leaders and speakers, but also to enjoy a bit of New Orleans hospitality. So I'm going to be brief. I'm going to start by talking to you a little bit about what's going on in Louisiana. But then I want to talk to you a little bit about more what's happening nationally. I want to close with a very, very specific request, because we've got a very, very important election coming up. I want to ask for your help. Everybody's focused on 2016, but there's actually an important election before then that we've got to win. Let me start with Louisiana. We have applied conservative principles here. You know, in our first year, not only did we revamp the ethics code, we got rid of some taxes on business, on their new equipment, on their debt, on their utilities. And to me, it was pretty simple. None of our surrounding states had these taxes. Companies would tell me their newest equipment in Louisiana was older than their oldest equipment in other states. They just couldn't compete here, they couldn't invest here. Unlike the president, I understand when it comes to taxes, you don't tax an activity if you want to encourage it. If you want to discourage an activity, you should tax it. Why in the world would you tax businesses where they're investing, expanding, and wanting to spend money? Later that year, I signed into law the largest income tax cut in our state's history. I did proudly take the ATR pledge. I made a commitment. We're not raising taxes as long as I'm the governor in the state of Louisiana. We've cut taxes, we've cut back government spending. Our state budget's about 26% smaller than when we took office. We have 26,000 fewer state employees than we took office. But as a result of that, and by the way, that's the lowest in over 20, 25 years. But it's not just about cutting taxes, it's not just about cutting spending, it's not just about revamping the ethics code, it's about creating jobs and opportunities. You know, I joked last time I spoke to you that we went from 44th to #1 in the country for legislative disclosure. We revamped our ethics code in large part because a survey of business leaders told us that one of their top concerns about investing in our state was the perception, was the history of corruption. And look, we all have our favorite jokes about Louisiana politicians. I know. I've told my share. I used to always steal one from Billy Toes, and he used to say, you know, in his state, in his district, any given moment in time, half of his people were underwater, the other half were under indictment any given moment. But the problem is, Eric and others here from Louisiana can tell you, is that those jokes stopped being funny. And I remember when I campaigned, I told our folks that we would focus on job creation. We would focus on growing our economy. We said we were tired of seeing our children move to other states. I remember, you know, too many of us have children or grandchildren now live in other cities like Austin or Atlanta or Houston or Dallas. I've got a brother, I've got a brother-in-law, both of whom are raising their families in Virginia. You know, we're blessed. My wife and I have got 3 beautiful young children. My in-laws, they live about an hour and a half away. My parents live about 30 minutes away, 15 to 30 minutes away. The great news is they get to see my kids play soccer and baseball and swim and football. They get to go to their school plays. But both my parents, my in-laws, they also have grandchildren they don't get to see. They only see him at Thanksgiving or Christmas. My brother has a baby boy. My brother-in-law and his wife, they got a couple of baby girls. And those grandparents only get to see him maybe at Christmas, Thanksgiving, once, twice, 3 times a year. So when I was campaigning, I said, we're going to change Louisiana so that we do become a better place for job creators, for families, so that our kids can pursue the American dream. For 25 years, we're the only state in the South where more people left Louisiana rather than moving into our state. Only state in the South that was losing our sons and daughters in good time and bad. We said we got to change that, and I can give you a long list of numbers and statistics. Let me just give you a couple to show you we're back on the right path. For example, we're a top 10 state for private sector job creation since 2008. Our GDP is growing 50% faster than the national average since 2008. Not only that, we're one of the handful of states that has more people working than before the national recession started. We're also a state, when you look at our per capita income, the second highest ranked in over 80 years as per capita income has gone up despite the national recession. Highest ever ranking on every major business climate, national business climate ranking. We've won the Southern Business Development of the Year award several years in the last few years. And here's the most important number. Because we can go through number after number about jobs being created. Our unemployment rate's been below the national and southern average every month of this recession. Here's the most important number. After 25 years of losing our sons and daughters, For the last 5 years in a row, we've now had more people move into Louisiana rather than leave our state. And what that means is our children and our grandchildren are beginning to come back home, but we can't declare victory. We can't declare victory until every child can pursue their dreams in this great state. You see, we understand something that our president and unfortunately too many people in Washington, D.C. don't understand. We understand that we need to be interested about growing the private sector economy, not the government sector economy. We understand you can't spend or borrow or tax yourself into prosperity. We understand the American dream is not a government check, not a handout. The American dream is doing better than your parents by getting a good paying job. Billions of dollars for private sector investment, tens of thousands of new jobs. I could talk to you a lot about the economy. I want to talk about two very specific examples where we're applying conservative principles to improve the quality of life for our people. The first is education. And I talked at length last year, and I won't go through all the different policies we've done, but I think this is a critical issue for conservatives. The reason I say that, you know, the president seems to believe in equality of outcomes as opposed to equality of opportunity. And we've got a very different perspective. We believe that every child, it doesn't matter where they were born in terms of their zip code, it doesn't matter what their race, their gender, it doesn't matter their wealth, their parents. We believe every child in America should have the opportunity to pursue the American dream. Every child should be able to do better than their parents. No child's future should be dictated by the circumstances of their birth. And if we really believe that, it starts by providing every child with a great education. In today's economy, it's great in Louisiana. We've cut taxes, revamped ethics, and invested in workforce training. Got the top-ranked workforce training program in the whole country several years in a row. But going forward, the states, the countries that have the most skilled, educated, productive people, those are the states, those are the countries that are going to win in today's global economy. And again, we've done several things in Louisiana. I'll boil it down to two simple things. Number one, we have said we're going to let the dollars follow the child instead of forcing the child to follow the dollars.
Good.
Now, what does that mean in simple terms? Every child learns differently. And you that are moms and dads out there, you know that. Some kids will do great in a public school. Some kids will do great in a magnet school. Some kids will do great in a charter school. Some kids will do better in a parochial school, a Christian school, an independent school. Some children will do better being homeschooled. Some children will do better in a dual enrollment program. Some children will do better with a combination of different programs. The point is, every child learns differently. Yet for too long, the way we fund education, we fund programs and then force children to fit into those programs. Instead, in Louisiana, we said, why don't we let the dollars follow the child? And so, for example, here in the city of New Orleans, 80% of our kids are in charter schools in 5 years. They double the percentage of kids doing reading and math on grade level. Despite the We started a scholarship program in New Orleans. We had 2,000 kids roughly when we started. We went statewide last year, had 5,000 kids. This year we're likely to have over 8,000 kids. We had 12,000 kids apply. It was just a lack of slots, although we've had even more kids placed in this program. It grows year after year, and the parents get to decide whether they want to go to private schools, parochial schools, independent schools. And you know, the unions, the teacher unions didn't like this. They came that one of the union leaders actually said something pretty offensive. Said, look, parents don't have a clue when it comes to making choices for their children. I can't think of a better summary of the debate between the left and the right than that statement right there. We met with a group of moms the very next day, and they said, Governor, we know our kids better than the bureaucrats in Baton Rouge or Washington, D.C. We make choices for our children every single day. And they're exactly right. I don't know about you, and Buckley had a famous quote about trusting the first names he read in the phone book over the faculty at Harvard. The same is true today. I have more confidence in the American people than the unelected bureaucrats that tell us how we should be raising and educating our children. We've done other things with school choice and dollars following the child. For example, we've got a course choice program, so a child can start the day in a public school and get mix and match those courses from private providers, online providers, universities, and other providers. We've done things like a scholarship tax credit rebate program where folks can give dollars and get a tax rebate to help kids go to private and other schools of their choices. We've done tax deductions and other programs as well, but it's a really simple concept. Competition and choice work. The other side believes in a top-down, industrial age, one-size-fits-all approach. We think in this new age, it makes sense to empower parents from the bottom up to meet the needs of each child. That brings me to the second point. We need to have a great teacher in every classroom. That sounds pretty simple. Who can be against that? Every one of us is here because there was a great teacher that took a special interest in us. I know it's hard to believe, especially we've got a lot of folks from Louisiana, I know, but there was a time when I was a quiet, shy student, if you can believe it. There was a drama teacher in elementary school that cast me in the school play. I was so quiet, she gave me the lead in the Pied Piper. My mom made me a great uniform. She glued some cotton to some fabric, made me a cape and a crown, and had this great costume. And at the end of that school year, they actually had our elementary school's version of the Academy Award. And I won a little award. I didn't realize, I was so young, I didn't realize every student won an award. My friends said I was quiet before that school play, and they said I've never shut up ever since. And so I don't know if it was good or bad thing. But every one of us has a math teacher, a drama teacher, a science teacher. Somebody took a special interest in us. Every study shows that a great teacher is the best thing we can do to improve educational outcomes for our kids. Whether you've got longitudinal studies showing that if your daughter has a great fourth grade teacher, she's more likely to go to college, less likely to become pregnant as a teenager. There are studies from Stanford showing that if your child has a great teacher, they're more likely to earn thousands of dollars more over their entire career than if they don't. And yet, you would think if it's so obvious we should have great teachers in every classroom, we would have policies to encourage great teaching. Yet too many of our policies seem to want to reward our teachers for how long they've been breathing rather than how well they're doing in the classroom. In Louisiana, we revamped our policies on things like teacher compensation, hiring, and firing, completely redid tenure policies. To say you've got to be one of the top teachers, most effective teachers for 5 out of 6 years before we'll give you tenure. If you're an ineffective teacher, for a year we'll make sure that you start to lose your tenure. In 2 years, you'll start to lose your job. In 3 years, you'll lose your teaching certificate. You won't be able to teach in the state of Louisiana because we want the best teachers in the classroom. Here are a couple of facts. Before we changed the tenure rules, 98% of our teachers were rated effective year after year. A third of our kids are below grade level, but 98% of teachers are rated effective. How in the world does that make sense? And we went to the unions, and again, they said, we're fine for evaluating teachers, just don't tie it so closely to student achievement. Well, we like to play in the SEC down here. That'd be like going to a football game and saying, go enjoy the game, just ignore the score at the end of the game. I don't know what the point of going is if it's not to see the score at the end of the game. I don't know what the point is unless it's student achievement. Now, the good news is thousands of great teachers across the state have embraced these changes and said, this will liberate them. Imagine if you were running a small business. And I went to you